On YouTube, A Crown, the Three Range Bros council member, is the creator of The Author's Crown. These are his stories.
Hello everyone, welcome to The Author's Crown. My name is A Crown. In this channel I will present to you stories written by both myself and occasionally stories written by good friends of mine. So without further ado, let's get this show started. Today's story is another alternate universe story, this one taking place in the world of One Piece. So sit back, relax, and enjoy One Piece, Blood on the Grand Line. The sky above the New World stretched wide and blue, the kind of day that should have belonged to laughter and adventure. The Thousand Sunny cut through the waves, her lion-headed prow gleaming in the sunlight. "Land ho!" Usopp's voice rang out from the crow's nest, the excitement in it almost childlike. He leaned forward, telescope in hand, squinting at the dark speck growing on the horizon. "I see smoke! An island! Looks like they're signaling us, Captain." He slid down to the deck of the ship and handed his telescope to Nami. She looked at the ever-growing signal of smoke. "That's no ordinary smoke. Those are signal flares." She traced their arcs in the sky with the telescope. Too steady, too organized. "Signal flares?" Luffy was already standing on the Sunny's rail, his grin wide, his straw hat tilting in the breeze. "That means they're asking for help, right? Let's go!" Zoro snorted from where he sat, sharpening his blades. "You're not even going to ask or think about what kind of trouble it is?" "It doesn't matter." Luffy stretched his arm out, pointing dramatically toward the island. "If people need saving, we're the ones to do it." Sanji lit a cigarette, exhaling a thin stream of smoke. His eyes, unlike Luffy's, were narrowed. "I don't like it. A distress signal this far into the New World? Doesn't feel right." Robin closed the book in her hands, her gaze thoughtful, as she looked out towards the smoke. "The flare pattern is familiar. It's marine in origin. Strange, isn't it? Pirates wouldn't normally know that code." Her voice made the crew pause, if only for a heartbeat. But Luffy simply laughed. "Then we'll save them from the Marines, too." Usopp swallowed hard, lowering the telescope. "Oh, oi. Doesn't anyone else think this smells like a trap?" His words wavered with the edge of panic. "Because if it's Marines, then we'll beat 'em up," Luffy said, as though it were the simplest thing in the world. The others groaned, but the captain's grin was infectious. Even Usopp, heart-pounding, felt the old familiar tug of courage he never truly owned, but always borrowed from Luffy's certainty. The Sunny angled towards the island. Beyond the smoke, they could just make out the jagged outlines of Valen's cliffs, its ports silent, its waters too calm. No welcoming crowds, no cries for help, just silence and the faint echo of cannon fire drifting on the wind. Robin's eyes narrowed as they got closer. "Something's waiting for us." The Sunny drifted into the harbor of Valen like a golden target. The waters were still, too still, as if the sea itself held its breath. "Where is everyone?" Chopper asked, peering nervously over the rail. His little hooves trembled. "If they called for help, shouldn't people be here?" The port was empty. Abandoned crates lay scattered on the docks, but no footsteps echoed, no voice called out. "It's quiet." Robin's eyes flicked across the cliffs, then higher. She noted the ridges, perfect positions for gunners to lie in wait. Too quiet. A sudden click split the air. Usopp froze. His telescope caught the flash of sunlight on something metallic far above. "Cannons!" he screamed. The sea erupted. Dozens of marine warships rose from behind the cliffs like sleeping monsters, their flags snapping in the wind. Rows of cannons bristled, already smoking from their first volley. Cannonballs whistled from the sky, black iron raining towards the Sunny. "Everyone move!" Nami shouted. The Sunny lurched as she spun the wheel, the deck exploding in splinters as cannonballs struck the shy of the hull. "Marines!" Sanji snarled, flames bursting to life around his legs. "Those bastards set us up!" On the lead ship, a tall figure stepped forward, light glinting off his body as if the sun itself bent to him. Borsalino, Admiral Kizaru, smiled lazily. raising a hand in mock greeting. "Oh my, what a troublesome bunch you are, Straw Hat Luffy. Caught at last." His voice carried across the water, calm, almost bored. "The world government sends its regards." Beside him stood another giant of a man, blind eyes hidden beneath a thick brow. Admiral Fujitora rested his hand on his sword, the air around him already beginning to warp with invisible gravity. And then came the third, a new admiral, his armor gleaming black, his jaw reinforced with steel that gave him his name, Admiral Ironjaw. His voice was iron scraping stone. "By order of the fleet, Admiral, you will all be exterminated." The Sunny rocked violently as an enormous shape rose from the fleet, a cannon the size of a fortress, mounted on a floating platform of steel. Its barrel glowed with sickly light, crackling with sea stone energy. Usopp's jaw dropped. What the hell is that?" Robin's voice was low, grim. "A weapon meant to erase us." Luffy's grin had not faded, but there was fire in his eyes now. He stretched his arms back, the air cracking as his muscles coiled. "So what? We'll smash them like always." "See," Nami shouted, panic cutting through her usual poise. "This is different. This is a trap for us. They knew we'd come." The Admiral stepped forward in unison, their combined presence crushing the harbor like a tidal wave. For the first time in years, silence spread across the Sunny's deck. Even Zoro's hand, resting on his swords, tightened as if acknowledging what lay ahead. "Captain, this is gonna be bad." Luffy planted his feet, the straw hat shadowing his eyes. "Good. Then let's make it a fight they'll never forget." The crew drew their weapons, their hearts pounding. Above them, the Leviathan cannon began to hum, and the trap finally sprang shut. The harbor shook like the end of the world. Cannon fire screamed overhead, tearing through water and stone. The Sunny rocked violently, her figurehead blackened with smoke. "Go, Sunny! Hold together, girl!" Frankie shouted, his arms transforming into cannons. He'd fired back, explosions booming across the nearest marine ship. "Super fire!" Retaliation barely dented the endless fleet. Zoro leapt from the deck, landing on the shattered dock below. His swords gleamed as he drew them, his bandana tied tight across his head. The air around him seemed too still, heavy with intent. "Zoro, wait!" Nami shouted. "It's suicide to charge them alone." "Then I'll take as many down with me as I can." His voice was steady, almost calm. "That's what it means to follow my captain." Before she could argue, Zoro was already gone, blurring forward with a roar. The Vice Admirals moved to intercept, steel clashing against steel as his blades cut arcs of green light. Each strike felled men by the dozen, ships splitting under the force of his fury. He was a storm given form, unrelenting, unbreakable. Usopp watched from the rail, trembling, his slingshot gripped so tightly his knuckles whitened. He's insane. He can't take them all. But then he saw it. Zoro's body slowing, his stance staggering, blood dripping from wounds too deep to ignore. "Damn it," Zoro muttered, his voice rough. His chest heaved as he raised his swords again. "Not yet." Admiral Fujitora stepped forward, his sword unsheathing with a hiss. The air bent, gravity crushing down like an invisible mountain. The dock cracked beneath Zoro's feet, his knees buckling. "Straw Hat Swordsman," Fujitora said softly, almost with regret. "Your will is strong, but your fate is sealed." Zoro's teeth bared in defiance. With a roar, he forced himself upright, every muscle screaming, and unleashed one final technique, his blades flashing like falling stars. Vice admirals before him fell, ships split in half, water exploding into the sky. And then Zoro dropped to one knee, his sword still in hand, his head bowed. "Tell Luffy," he rasped, blood spilling from his lips. "I didn't hold back." The last of his strength left him, and his body slumped, still gripping his blades as if even death couldn't pry them free. "Zoro!" Usopp screamed, cracked the air, raw and desperate. His knees gave out, and he clutched the rail like it was the only thing keeping him from falling apart. Luffy's face was shadowed, his jaw clenched tight. For once, he said nothing. Above them, the Leviathan cannon continued to hum, brighter now, preparing to fire. And Zoro, their first fallen, lay silent at the harbor's edge. The roar of Zoro's fall still hung in the air when the Sunny lurched violently, struck broadside by a barrage of cannon fire. The lion figurehead splintered, the deck cracking beneath their feet. "Damage to the hull! She won't take much more!" Frankie bellowed, his voice breaking with fury. Nami's hands flew across the helm, eyes darting between the incoming fire and the jagged coastline. "If we can get out to open sea, we might escape their range." "Then get us out!" Sanji shouted, his cigarette gone, his teeth clenched. "I'll clear a path!" His leg ignited as he vaulted into the air, spinning into the nearest squad of Marines that had boarded the dock. The impact sent bodies flying, his heel blazing as he kicked through steel and stone and wood alike. "Out of my way, bastards!" he snarled, the smoke of battle mixing with his fury. "No one touches my crew!" Nami's hands trembled on the wheel. She pushed the Sunny hard, sails straining, the ship listing towards open waters. The sea was choked with smoke, the flashes of cannon fire reflecting red on her pale face. And then the air itself began to glow. Usopp's wide eyes found the source. "The cannon! It's charging again!" The Leviathan cannon whined like a living thing, sea stone energy condensing into a sphere of blinding light at its maw. Its aim shifted, locking on to the Sunny with merciless precision. "No, no, 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 no," Nami whispered, her knuckles whitened on the helm. Sanji landed hard on the deck, his coat scorched, his chest heaving. He saw it too, the light, the inevitable end. In a single motion, he scooped Nami into his arms. "Sanji, what are you—" "Shut up!" His voice was sharp, but his eyes were soft, desperate. He pressed her close, shielding her body with his own. "If this is it, then I'll make sure you don't feel a thing." "Don't you dare!" Her protest broke into a sob, but it was too late. The Leviathan cannon fired. The world became light. The Sunny shattered into fire and ash, the explosion rippling across the harbor like the wrath of a god. The lion's head disintegrated. The mast cracked and split. The decks burned to nothing. The figure of Sanji and Nami, locked together in one last embrace, was swallowed whole. Fragments of wood and flame rained across the sea. Among them drifted a charred, small splinters, mast preserved for years as a relic, now burning away like everything else. "No!" Frankie's scream tore through the thunder, a raw and broken howl. His fists slammed against the deck, metal denting beneath his rage. Usopp collapsed to his knees, his breath ragged, tears streaming unchecked. They're gone. They're really gone." Luffy stood silent, his fists trembling, his straw hat shadowing his face. The fire reflected in his eyes, not as a light, but as fuel. The Sunny was gone, and with her, Sanji and Nami. The world after the Sunny's destruction seemed to move without sound. The spray of seawater, the smoke curling into the blue sky, the floating debris, all of it hung in a silence that mocked the screams still echoing in the crew's chests. Frankie's fist shook as he roared again, firing missiles and lasers wildly at the fleets, but the blast barely scarred the nearest warship. His tears steamed against his metal cheeks, grief and fury making his aim reckless. Chopper staggered forward, his little body trembling, his eyes fixed on the empty water where Nami and Sanji had been. "No, no, they can't be gone. They can't." He fumbled at his satchel as if medicine could heal the void of death. Robin's face was pale, unreadable, but her hands clenched around her book until the cover cracked. Her voice was low, but shaking. They planned this. They meant for us to—" She couldn't even finish her sentence. Usopp could only whisper over and over, "They're gone. They're gone," until his voice cracked into raw sobs. And Luffy, the captain, stood frozen, his hat shadowing his face, his fists quivering. The sea hissed where his nails dug into his palms, blood dripping into the water. Then, slowly, the trembling stopped. His body straightened, his chest heaved, and his head rose. His eyes were no longer wide with boyish fire. They were narrowed, dark, and boiling with a fury that seemed to set the air itself alight. The Marines felt it. Kizaru tilted his head, his lazy grin faltering. Oh, how frightening! Fujitora's blind eyes turned towards the boy as though he could see him clearer than anyone else. His hand tightened on his blade. So, this is the weight of his spirit. Ironjaw sneered, his jaw grinding like a blade on stone. He's just one pirate bat. Nothing we can't. The words cut off when the sea moved. The waves bent outward from the Sunny's wreck, spiraling into whirlpools as Luffy's haki erupted. The sky darkened as if the world itself recoiled. Conqueror's haki crackled through the air, splitting the clouds in jagged scars of black lightning. Marines on the nearest ships collapsed instantly, their eyes rolling white, their bodies dropping like puppets with cut strings. Gear. Fifth. The sound wasn't joy, wasn't laughter. It was fury stretched thin across a smile that promised only violence. His body expanded, his hair blazing white, his heartbeat thundering like war drums. The ground beneath him warped, the dock bending upwards as if to cradle him. And then he moved. In an instant he was upon Ironjaw, his fist slamming into the Admiral's chest with such force the man's steel jaw cracked in half. The warship behind him buckled, folding like paper as it was hurled into the sea. Kizaru's light blurred, beams snapping towards Luffy, but the rubber body bent and twisted, snapping back with a punch that split the air in a shockwave so violent the cliffside itself shattered. Fujitora raised his blade, gravity crushing down with mountain-breaking force, only for Luffy to grip the very air, yank it upward, and hurl the weight back at him. The harbor buckled, stone tearing free, as if the world was coming undone. The admirals, for the first time, were on the defensive, but even as the crew felt that flicker of hope, the Leviathan cannon began to hum again. Usopp scrambled to his feet, aiming his slingshot at the monstrous weapon. I'll stop it. His hands shook as he loaded, the memory of Zoro's last stand, and Nami and Sanji, in cold, lifeless embrace, flashed before his eyes. I can't let anyone else. The cannon fired. The beam seared across the water, grazing the Sunny's broken deck where Frankie and Chopper stood. Frankie shoved Chopper aside with a roar, the blast catching him full on. Frankie! Metal screamed as his body melted under the sea stone light. His arms, once cannon, melted into slag, his chest bursting open in fire. With his last strength, he turned and grinned at Chopper, his teeth glinting even through blood and fire. Be strong, little bro. The explosion took him, scattering his body across the waves in molten shards. Chopper's scream was not a child's, it was an animal's, raw and tearing, air echoing across the harbor like a dying roar. Usopp collapsed, shaking violently. No, please no more. Robin's hands curled into fists, sprouting limbs that lashed at Marines swarming the docks. Her voice cracked for the first time in years. We have to retreat, or we'll all... Retreat! Luffy's voice thundered from above, distorted by his power, filled with rage. Not until every last one of them. Luffy! Robin's shout was sharp, desperate. If you keep fighting, you'll lose all of us. The Leviathan cannon glowed again, brighter than before, preparing for a killing shot. The choice loomed. Fight until the end, or retreat into the shadows, broken but alive. But all, the admirals closed in once more, their forms battered but unbroken, determined to end the era of Straw Hat Luffy. The harbor became a theater of ruin and a hymn of broken things. Luffy's blows were avalanches. He tore through decks and bone and steel with a kind of violent grace that made the world seem too small for him. Every strike he landed birthed new silence, snapping of rigging, the hollow thud of men hitting wood, the brittle fall of armor. Kizaru's light fractured like glass against Luffy's haki, only to have Luffy's rubber body slam through the shards and keep going. Ironjaw tasted the raw, unmeasured force of the captain, and found his reinforced jaw useless against a fist that was more world than man. Fujitora's gravity bent and crushed, but Luffy's fist bent back at it, and for a while the admirals bled like any other warrior. Hard-earned wounds, but not enough to stop the storm. Flared, brief and beautiful, across the faces of the survivors. For one breath they thought the impossible might be possible, that the straw hat might carve them a path out of this funeral pyre. Then the Leviathan cannon answered. It had been wounded, hammered, and mocked since the battle began, but its core, sea stone, and some darker engineering held. The platform that bore it flexed like a beast smelling blood. It spun, recalibrated, and drew in the harbor's ruined light until the mouth glowed like a second sun. The admirals, battered and furious, made the calculation that the world government would accept. The cost of annihilating this pirate crew was the only order that mattered. Now! Ironjaw's finish was a rasp under the noise. Finish them! Kizaru and Fujitora hesitated only an instant. Together they turned every ounce of the power they had left back towards the cannon, Fujitora warping gravity to stabilize the aim, Kizaru lending impossible speed and light to the shot, Ironjaw feeding sea stone energy into the maw until it screamed. The Leviathan cannon drew the final breath. Luffy heard the hum, felt it in his bones like a countdown. He spun, a meteor of hate and grief, straight for the barrel. He would not look away. He would not run. He would punch the sky if he had to. Around him, the last defenses formed without thinking. Usopp took his slingshot and braced. Chopper squeezed herbs between numb fingers and prayed. Robin's arms wrapped around the survivors and the enemies alike in a desperate, fatal attempt to shield those she could. Each action was the purest kind of human refusal to accept the end. The beam came. It struck with the light of a dawn that did not promise warmth, a clean, ruthless column that chewed wood and flesh and metal with indifferent hunger. It hit Luffy full on. For a second, no more, something impossible happened. Luffy's body swallowed the light. His skin glowed, then seared, then flared as his haki met sea stone in inevitability. He became a thing of white heat and rubber and wrath, and living inverse of the cannon's hunger. The beam warped around him, shuddering. He punched back. The impact detonated like the breaking of continents. Water rose in a mountain and fell as a shroud. Ships were unmade in the blast periphery. Kizaru's body was hurled through the sky like a puppet with its strings cut. He struck the cliffside and did not rise. Fujitora's sword snapped from his hand as gravity tore him down. The admiral grinned through the pain, the weight of it all settling into something near acceptance, and he did not stand again. Ironjaw's reinforced jaw split under a blow that was more world than fist. His body, half man, half machine, was collapsed into the sea as if swallowed by the harbor he tried to rule. The Leviathan cannon, its maw lit with the last sea stone glow, twisted. The platform cracked. The barrel buckled like a neck under a god's hand. In the cathedral of destruction, the light collapsed inward, and then there was nothing. Silence that was not mercy. But the silence tasted like loss. When the smoke and spray cleared, the scene that remained was not one of victory so much as of emptiness carved into flesh and wood. Luffy lay in the hollow he'd made, no longer the bright, laughing boy who leapt at the sky. His chest heaved in shallow, ragged breaths. His eyes were open, but they carried the look of someone who had given everything until there was none left to take. His arms were broken, ribs shattered, breath nicked and bleeding into the sea. The haki that had once burned like a crown flickered and guttered. Around him, bodies drifted like loose pages from a storybook. Zoro's sword still lay where he'd fallen. Sanji and Nami's embrace had long since been consumed. Frankie's hands, mangled, molten, were impossible to recognize as the hands that once built wonders. Chopper's small chest did not rise. Usopp lay several feet away, eyes wide and unblinking, fingers curled around a spent sling, alive, hollowed down to something that resembled a shell. Robin's face was smeared with grit and salt. Her mouth was open, as from it spilled not a prayer, but a single last order. Her arms were tangled in the ruin, her limbs still trying to shield a body that was not hers. She had held back more than anyone knew. She had tried to take the fall so that others might breathe. Now she lay very still, a book drifting slowly closed. The survivors were almost none. Usopp pushed himself up with a sound that was not a cry, not quite a sob. He crawled, each movement a betrayal of his every nerve, until he was at Luffy's side. He cradled the captain's head like a child tucking in a dying parent. There were no words that could bridge what had been consumed. Luffy! His voice was tiny, jagged. Captain, please, please don't leave me. Luffy's hand found Usopp's, warm, tremulous, and squeezed with crushing weakness. His mouth worked. Keep the words were shards. He coughed, and a small salt smell of ocean came up with the blood. Keep your... He could not finish. Usopp's hands shook so violently he thought they would drop to pieces. He pressed his forehead to Luffy's, the gesture without dignity, but full of need. I will, Captain. I'll keep it all, I promise. He lied because it was better than the truth. Around them, the harbor kept breathing, water lapping at broken planks, gulls calling, a wind scavenging the ash of a life. No admiral rose to collect trophies. No marines cheered. The world's government machine had won its day, and for reasons older and harder than victory, the men who used it did not gloat. They left the ruins to slumber under a blue sky that refused to notice. Night would come later. The few who could move would take what little they had and flee, and the island of Valen would be a tomb that told nothing but the shape of absence. This was not a battle's end. It was a ledger closed with blood and fire. Luffy did not get up to stand again. Then the light finally left his eyes. It felt like a tide pulling out and not returning, like a future erased by the press of a thumb. Usopp's keening split the air, a sound so raw and human it might have cracked stone. He was left clutching the captain's hat, the last stubborn emblem of laughter in a sea of silence. And that's the story for today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you like what you heard today, stay tuned for some awesome things to check out on the Zeo to Hero Network. And thank you for listening to The Author's Crown. Subscribe to the channel! Do it now! Hey everyone, I'm A-Crown, and I'm thrilled to share that I'll be stepping into the cape and cowl as Batman in Nerdsto Comics' brand new audio drama adaptation of The Killing Joke. If you followed the channel before, you might know me from some of its other projects. I've had the chance to voice Commander William Riker and Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy in Doctor Who, Star Trek Assimilation, Billy Cranston and Goldar in Power Rangers adaptations, and even Taskmaster and Thor in Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. But this is special. The Killing Joke is one of the most iconic Batman stories ever told, and bringing it to life through audio has been an incredible experience. So make sure to follow Nerdsto Comics and get ready to step into Gotham with us when the laughter begins. What the hell, Grayson? I don't want to do this.
Come on, Roy. Don't be a jerk.
Fine. My name is Roy Harper, or you might know me as Arsenal. If you're interested in an original story set in the DC and Marvel universes, you need to go to Tiger Tales and listen to War Against Gotham.
And his other channels?
Shut up, Grayson. I'm getting to it. You may also want to go check out his other channels. There, you happy dick.
You could have at least done it with a little bit more enthusiasm.
No, I did it. Now I'm going home.